So Russell is afraid that I'm going to spoil weapons for him, which I saw over the weekend with my mate Vasily Makiv. Check out the video on this channel. Is Spanian-as-hero. He was in that one very briefly. Weapons was a good movie, Rusty.
No, sorry.
Do you want to know about weapons?
No. I pulled a smirky face when you said is Spanian-as-hero.
Yeah.
I'll resist rolling my eyes.
He's a mythical hero. In the sense that he climbed out of Hades. That's the whole point, right? He was in prison.
Wait.
And he's...
I thought you meant Spanian, the real guy.
I did mean Spanian, the real guy today.
Yep.
As in, you know, he turned his life around. It's part of the hero's journey. That can be applied to any character.
Anyway.
Real life, film adaptations,
anyway.
Literature. Why do you think it's funny? Anyway.
So I forgot to give my popcorn rating for No Country for Old Men. So in my 2-tier popcorn rating review system, there's one where you do the popcorn rating within the genre.
Oh, let's get away from the bins and get them all.
So the movie within that genre, because then sometimes you might watch, you know, like the Barbie movie. It's not your kind of genre of film, but genre. Like within that, whatever that is, comedy thing. I thought that was a good 4.5. But anyway,
yeah.
No Country for Old Men within its genre and universally within the universal genre system, like just out of movies in general, it's a 5 out of 5 bags of popcorn.
I'd agree with that. I think it's a great film. The fact that there isn't a soundtrack at all, and it's just pure performance and cinematography, right? Because it's performance driven, with Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem and Tommy Lee Jones pretty much spearheading the whole thing. Anyway, so you've given your popcorn review. I agree with it.
You just could not make it better. Except maybe you could make it longer to match themes with the book, but then...
Well, but
that's just...
You can't do that.
That's just being...
You can't do
too
that.
Nitpicky.
It is too nitpicky. So I'm going to talk about weapons a little bit now, and then you'll walk off because you don't want me to spoil it for you.
See you later.
Weapons stars Josh Brolin. I just realised that the only actor's name who I know in Weapons is Josh Brolin. I don't know who directed it. Could you look up who directed it, please, and tell me?
Just make it the Josh Brolin movie review.
It's a great horror film. It's a mystery horror film, and the pretext is basically at 2:17 a.m. in a small American town. All of the students, bar one, in one primary school, they leave their homes at the same time. They kind of run out of them with their hands outstretched in like an aeroplane sort of stance, and they disappear. Thankfully, look, spoilers. Thankfully, the students, well, Russell, close your ears. He's going, he's leaving. See there, he's off. Shut your ears. The students are fine by the end of it. So, American mystery horror film directed, written, produced, and co-scored by Zack Cregger. So he did everything for it. Julia Garner's in it, Alden Ehrenreich, and Josh Brolin also produced the film. And it's an interesting thematic connection between Weapons and No Country for Old Men, because of course Josh Brolin is in No Country as Llewellyn Moss. So the kids all they leave, and basically scrutiny has been placed on the teacher of this classroom, of this primary school. She is the object of a sort of a witch hunt. There are public inquiries in the town by the police. They basically investigate the disappearance of these school kids by, of course, interviewing the one child who didn't go missing and his family. And then you have the film unfold from the perspectives of various characters. In the first instance, it's the school teacher, played by Julia Garner in the film, I think. Is it Julia Garner? I'm not sure. Let me check that. In the first instance, she's Justine Gandy, the teacher. It's also immediately after her going to follow various other characters. What happens both before and immediately after the disappearance of the students from this character's perspective. So Josh Brolin is Archer Graff, a construction contractor and the father of Matthew, one of the children who goes missing. Alden Ehrenreich is Paul Morgan, a troubled police officer and Justine's former flame. There's a homeless drug addict and burglar who it also follows. Benedict Wong, the principal of the school. He's in those Marvel films, the Doctor Strange films as one of the masters of manipulating matter and time and space, and so on and so forth. So basically, shown through the perspectives of these various characters, you have Justine, who's being accused by the town of, knowing something that they don't know in relation to the disappearance of the kids. Spoiler alert, it isn't her in the end. Josh Brolin is basically after her and is trying to investigate, exactly what took place in relation to the disappearance of his son. Justine's former flame is embroiled in it as well, who's a police officer, the principal at the school, a drug addict who the police officer happens to stumble upon. And I won't tell you the intricacies of these characters and the way that they relate to one another. Suffice it to say that by the end of the film, what you do get is all of their paths converging, and it is very interesting where their paths converge. They converge on a house in the town, which, as we find out towards the end of the film, is where all of the children are, in the basement. How did they get to this house? What evil force coordinated events in such a way as to take these children from their homes? It is an old lady, a witch, right? An old witch. And so as I was watching the film, it kind of occurred to me that an archetype, a mythical and folklorish archetype was playing out in relation to the story, which is most commonly typified by Hansel and Gretel. Okay, the German folk tale about two children who go missing in the woods. In the more nefarious versions, the original versions by the brothers Grimm, for example, of this folk tale, they are deliberately abandoned in the woods by an evil stepmother and an unwilling yet accomplice-like father. Okay, and they eventually find themselves captured by the evil witch who lives in these woods. But what does the evil crone, the archetypal crone, do in order to ensnare these young lives that are full of promise and hope and the future ahead of them? Right? The old crone is towards the end of her life. In Hansel and Gretel, the young children are at the beginning of their life's journey. Well, she ensnares them by turning her house into a gingerbread house. And so these kids who have been in the woods for 3 days, according to the Brothers Grimm version, and are starving, they start to pick bits off the house and begin to eat it, and they are welcomed inside by the old woman, who hides her real intentions, which is to cook and eat these children, but in fact begins to give them milk and pancakes, and eventually Hansel is put into a cage in order to be fattened up so that Gretel can, under duress, cook her brother, and that both Hansel being cooked in a pot and Gretel being put in an oven can become this witch's meal. As we know, thankfully in the story, Gretel was too quick and too clever for the witch, who had been trying to fatten up Hansel, who was put in a cage, and every time she would go out and check if he'd begotten big enough to be enjoyed as a meal, he would stick a little bone out of the cage so that she would, with her bad eyesight, feel his finger and see that he hadn't put on enough weight. She loses her patience in the end and wants to cook him as is, and she gets Gretel to prepare the stew and also to prepare the oven, which once the oven is prepared, she asks Gretel to get inside to check if it's really warm enough. And Gretel says, but I don't know how to get inside, playing innocent in this sense. And the witch says, why, you daft child, look, it's so easy. And she climbs inside, and Gretel shuts the oven and cooks the witch and liberates Hansel, and together they ransack the house for all of its jewels and pearls and go back to their father's home. The evil stepmother having since died. So that's the basic outline of the Hansel and Gretel folk tale, if you like, fairy tale. It plays out in this film in a very similar way as well. What you find out at the end of the film, spoiler alert, is that the aunt of this particular child who did not go missing came to visit his parents, who are loving parents, adoring of their child, because she's very ill, and she's got no one else to look after her. And so the mother says, we're obliged to take my aunt in and take care of her for the duration of her illness. The husband complains, the child complains as well, but this is what transpires. Amy Madigan plays Gladys, the eccentric great aunt of Alex, the child who doesn't go missing. It turns out that she's a witch. She uses her magic to ensnare the parents and kind of feed off their life force, turning them into they're alive, but they're like zombies, doing her bidding. And she begins to recover gradually, but she's still ill. She basically ensnares Alex and threatens him by saying that she'll do something terrible to the parents if he doesn't comply and not let anyone at school know that she's there, and so on and so forth. As she gets sicker, she hoodwinks him by promising to leave if he gets more and more people for her to feed off of, in this sense. It's kind of like feeding off the life force of these people. So he ends up stealing an object from each of his classmates, and the witch, by using the objects, manages to, get all these children into the house at one time at 2:14 or 2:17 in the morning, when they all get up and run out of their homes. So this is, from a psychological point of view, emblematic of an old woman who has not addressed her aging process with wisdom, who oppresses the young in order to fill their or her emotional life with distractions from pain or misery. It's known as enmeshment. It can be also described as emotional incest. It's something that happens in the parent-child, grandparent-grandchild relationship when a woman in particular, and this is not a feminist thing, it happens with narcissistic and abusive male figures as well, but when the crone archetype emerges in the psyche of someone through their life's journey. So it's obvious that just like the witch in Hansel and Gretel, Gladys in Weapons is the archetypal crone who is eking out as much of life as possible at the expense of the young. And this plays out psychologically in the lives of people as well, if they don't address their traumas, or if they have outsourced their personality to life's distractions in order to avoid facing their traumas. And it's partly why people are sometimes oppressed by a parent figure who they haven't been able to unravel from. It's also associated with forms of narcissistic abuse. So that all came to mind as I was watching the film. Thankfully, at the end, the children are saved by Josh Brolin's character and the teacher, and they take out their revenge on this old woman as weapons, because people are weaponized throughout the film by the witch. That's why the film has its title. But I don't want to say any more about it. If you happen to see it, you'll see what I mean, and you'll notice that all these old stories, coming out of folklore, in this case coming out of Hansel and Gretel, just play out again and again in contemporary media, in this case in the film Weapons. It's not a bad film, pretty entertaining, and I leave it with that. None of these things are without their psychological or even spiritual relevance from a certain point of view. Obviously, the film paints the witch as a bad guy because this kind of sorcery and magic is utterly selfish. It utilizes or manipulates people, turns them into victims to suit and serve the selfish interests of the person practicing magic. So that's something that is decried in all forms of occultism by traditional religious institutions, and you can see how that makes a lot of sense, right? That's why these characters always appear as baddies in horror films. But beyond that, in a psychological sense, it makes sense in terms of the archetypal crone as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, friends.